What is up, my fellow Chibits? Today I'm here to bring all of you another weekly anime review of Gate Season 2, Episode 3. I gotta talk about that ending. First things first, I have to talk about that ending. I think everybody knows my favorite female character in this series is definitely Rory Mercury. And seeing how she did that to Itami when she's like, oh, your soul is mine now. I'm like, bruh, just... I've always shipped those two. I've always shipped those two since, the last season, with that one scene. I think we all remember that one scene when Rory was attacking Itami. But when I saw this episode and I saw it ending, I'm like, yes, that's what I like to see. The couple is going strong. That ship is selling. So very good shit right there. But that's not really what the entirety of this episode is about, of course. So enough of me fanboying on the romance. Let's actually talk about what this episode is really about. So, the main focus is Tuka. And Tuka, she has to have her arc, or her main plot thread, finally settled. And it's been ongoing since actually the last season of showcasing that she is a little bit wacko. For instance, she is constantly trying to find her father. Even though we all know as the viewer that her father is dead, was killed by the dragon, she still thinks her father is alive. And so, throughout majority of the season, or actually the entirety of this season, and like the ending part of Season 1, she's been constantly roaming around trying to find her father, even though her father is long dead. And in this episode, or what we're getting into now with this upcoming arc, Tuka's finally going to have to confront the death of her father, which I cannot wait, because this is something I'm glad is finally moving forward, and I'm glad it was actually decently paced throughout this entire episode. You would think something like this would have been kind of drawn out, like, drugged out constantly, until it ran it into the ground. And I am so glad all these different details throughout this episode of, just getting the mission started, how they're starting to travel and stuff, it got settled in this episode, because now we can move on to finally getting her to realize her father is gone. But let's talk about Itami's standpoint in this episode. So, I feel really bad for him. I really feel bad for Itami, because for one, he has to play the figure of a father. He has to be a father figure to Tuka, and Tuka thinks that, Itami's her father. She's having delusions. And I know for a fact that must be a very painful situation, because, just imagine if you had to play the role of someone's father, even though that father is dead, the girl thinks you're her father, and you're having to play that role. That would probably fuck with you. It'd probably fuck with your mind. It'd probably mess you up to where you just probably couldn't sleep well, or you'll be very irritable or irritated. And you can definitely see it throughout the entirety of, this episode, that it slightly does bug him. You can definitely see how it bugs him, and it's, putting pressure on him where he doesn't know what he wants to do. And I love that. I love to see that type of, characterization to Itami and how he's doing that for Tuka and how much he actually cares for her. And along with, getting to see how he doesn't want to throw any of his other comrades inside of the fight, for instance, to go after this dragon, which I am really kind of happy to see, because for one, it allows our other cast of characters, our other female characters like Rory and our, all of our other characters to kind of get the spotlight. Besides just the Japanese Defense Force, we also have it to where we have, these other female characters that were introduced to finally have the spotlight once again in the season. So I'm glad to see that. I'm very glad to see that. I'm glad to see how we're going to have this adventure with them. And Itami's probably going to have it very rough though, because he's going to have to keep, Tuka in check, because, she thinks that Itami's her father, and he's probably going to have to protect her quite a bit, because once they see the dragon, I'm going to bet right now, I'm willing to bet Tuka is probably going to freak out when she sees the dragon, because she's going to probably have some form of visions, or something's going to happen to where she's going to realize that her father is dead. I do hope she overcomes it quite well. Now, speaking about the other characters, like the Dark Elf, I forget her exact name, because, she's barely been in the overall picture besides, like, the final part of the episode of the first season, and maybe roughly just a little bit in this season. So, talking about her, she's crazy. She's really fucking nuts. Like, how far she goes for her people, I commend her for how far she would go for her land, her people. That's a good thing she did. But to see how she was fucking with Tuka, and how she pretty much fucked with her mind, saying, like, your father's dead, and she did that to get Itami in the game to where he would actually do something, that's pretty damn fucked up. It really is. I'd be kind of sickened by a person that would try to do something like that to someone. Someone's mentally ill, and then you come up and then fuck with their mind even more. That's like kicking a dead horse. Like, someone is mentally ill, they're fucked up in the brain, and when you're just kicking them, and you're like, oh, don't worry, I'm actually helping you. That's fucked up. That is really fucked up what she was doing to poor Tuka throughout this entire episode. But then also other scenes throughout this episode of how, Itami was trying to figure out ways how he could go on this mission, or how everybody's trying to help him out with how he can go to this mission and, save her or take down the dragon without it kind of being something that would get him into trouble. For instance, he could go on a mission, gain minerals, oil, diamonds, stuff like that, and it would help him out quite a bit. But like I said earlier, he didn't want to go with anyone else because he wanted volunteers instead. He didn't want to force his men, his squad, to go in there and try to do some form of personal goal. He wanted to have a squad that would volunteer, and so that's exactly what happened at the end of this episode. So yeah, overall execution stuff of this episode, I enjoyed it quite a bit. Now, talking about other little things, especially to like the bunny prisoner, she is fucked up. Like, okay, so we finally get her angle in all of this. She actually wants to get revenge. She's actually using the asshole prince dude. She's using him to try to get revenge and turn the two countries against each other, trying to turn Japan against this other country and go at war. And she wants to see pretty much everybody burn. That's exactly what she wants. And at the end, or towards the end of this episode, she sets up something to where she wants the princess to actually take the fall for supposedly the girl that was saved in last week's episode. And I'm like, yo, if that happens, that's going to be pretty damn bad. I mean, you got to think about this. I mean, if someone gets slaughtered and is blamed on someone else, that's going to be pretty damn bad. So, I wonder how that's going to kind of retain to the prisoners that was already captured from, their government and stuff, or, their land. Because if so, I wonder if Japan would be willing to give them back if one of their guys gets killed in their own damn territory that they've kind of gained. So a lot of questions I have about that, but it was a very good episode. Some might dislike it just because of the overall Tuka scene, because her being crazy and, being a total father con throughout this entire episode. I could see how many might get annoyed. I personally enjoyed it, and I'm glad to see this progression. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.